Welcome this evening. Welcome, Jerry. Jerry was a Jewish dentist. Is that correct? And a maven. You did some wonderful work on people. I've been trying to convince you to teach others, because when you have such a skill and such a gift, it's important to teach it to others. But you seem to be on a new trajectory, and I'm glad you're with us, Jerry. It's always a pleasure to see you. And Miriam Birnbaum is a friend of mine for how many years? 30 years, Miriam has been coming to this.
I guess about 30.
To this congregation, and we've been learning together and growing together. And Baruch Brian Benjamin, who is incognito, has also been with us from the very beginning. So now tonight we're going to look at Ele HaMishpatim. Now the Mishpatim means the ordinances, the injunctions. Next week we'll be doing Terumah, but this week is Mishpatim. And it is a very, as I remember our Rabbi used to say, it was always the best portion. He was always excited about the portions. And what's exciting for me is to be able to read them with new eyes each time I see them. We get a little lazy when someone else does the work for us. But here tonight, we're going to be doing the work ourselves. We're going to look at the screen now. I'm going to share it. And we're going to be reading. The portion is from Exodus chapter 21:1 until Exodus 24, verse 18. So we're going to look at 4 chapters tonight. It says, Va'ele HaMishpatim. When you see a va, it always means that it's a continuation of what came before. And it's always good to keep things in context. So we go back. If you're interested, you go back and you read the end of chapter 21. We have just been given the 10 commandments, which are the constitution for our people, the constitution for Israel, the gift that God gave us, written in stone by his own very own hand, handed to Moses, given to the Israelites, which are us, to bring to all the nations so that we could live in peace and harmony. And it says, now, these are the ordinances, the injunctions, which you shall set before them. So now he's continuing. So the 10 commandments are the basic foundation, and everything else is how to apply these 10 to our lives. So what we'll be reading here in these chapters are 53 of the Mishpatim that he's going to be giving us in these next few verses. And it's going to, as we're reading, let's see if we can relate, okay, this one goes to this commandment, and this one goes to that commandment. So let me just repeat again. The first 3 commandments are called the mitzvot. The first one is, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Out of slavery, you are to have no other gods. The second one, do not make any images and bow down to worship these images. The third one, don't take his name in vain. So those 3, the first 3 have to do with our relationship with our Creator, the one who brought us out of Egypt. If you believe in a God who did not bring the Israelites out of Egypt, he is a false God, period. This is what the Torah teaches. Don't yell at me. It's what the Torah says. The middle 2, what our Rabbi used to say, are like the hinge. The fourth one is the Shabbat. The Shabbat, there's no reason that we know except God was telling us, you are no longer slaves. Now you're free. And the Shabbat is a sign that I exist. You are to take off this one day. Not only you, your slaves, your animals, everybody. Number 5, honor your parents. Have reverence for them. Even if you don't like them, even if you don't agree with them, you need to honor them. That allows us to live long in the land that the Lord is going to be giving us. So 4 and 5 have to do with us, how to rest, how to live long. The last 5, the last 5 go from you're not to steal, you're not to commit adultery, you're not to commit murder, you're not to gossip and tear down the character of another human being, don't lie about them, to ruin their reputation. And number 10, don't be jealous, don't be envious, do not covet anything they have. Those 5 have to do with our neighbor. First 3 are relationship with God. The second 2 are relationship with ourselves. And the last 5 are relationship with our neighbor. That covers the whole gamut. Now, these ordinances that we're going to read are made specifically for that time, the era in which they were given. They are not in chronological order, but they have a principle that can be applied to our lives today. Today, it says here, if you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve you for 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go free for nothing. Today, we don't have Hebrew slaves. So we know that there is going to be some principle in here that we need to take a look at. If he comes in by himself, so he's usually a Hebrew servant, a man would make himself a servant when he could not find work or he's lost everything and he has to sell himself to somebody else to hire him. Today, we could say you're taking a job, you're getting employment. 6 years, he's going to serve. The 7th, he'll go free for nothing. Now, in this particular case, I think it has more to do with being a slave, because it says if he comes by himself, he can leave by himself. If he's married, then his wife can go with him. But if his master gave him a wife and she bore him sons or daughters, the wife and her children belong to the master. And if he wants to leave, he has to go by himself, because the wife and the children did never belong to him, they belong to his master. But if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife and my children, I will not go free, then his master shall bring him to God, to bring him to the doorpost, and shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. So in this case, the man is choosing because he prefers the security of being taken care of by the master, by keeping his wife and his children. So he is keeping himself in that position. He is in some way choosing to remain a slave. If a man sells his daughter to be a servant, she shall not go out as the men servants do, because if she doesn't please her master, who has basically married, it's like he married her, then he shall let her be redeemed. If she doesn't please him, he can let her be redeemed by someone else, but he cannot sell her to a foreign people, because he has dealt deceitfully with her, because he's not pleased with her. If he marries her to his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters, and he shall take him, and if he takes
Peggy?
yeah.
Sorry, did you miss reading the last part? He
He shall have no power, seeing that he has dealt deceitfully with her.
Okay.
No, I just said, I changed the way it says. He's unable to sell her to a foreign people.
Okay.
The way the English is very old English, so I just changed it around. So really, all these cases have to do with taking people into consideration, having rachmanis, having mercy upon them. If he lets his son marry her, then he has to treat her like a daughter. And if he takes another wife, her food, her garments, and her conjugal rights shall he not diminish. In other words, if you marry somebody, you have to take care of her. You have to provide for her food, her clothing, and her conjugal rights. She has the right to the marriage bed. That he shall not diminish. And if he does, he's guilty. If he does not do these three to her, then she can leave free, but she can take no money with her. He who kills a man shall surely be put to death. So here is really the death penalty for anyone who commits premeditated murder. And because we don't no longer do that, we have a penal system that is so overtaxed, where the people are having to pay for people who are truly guilty in jail. And I know that it's very difficult for us because we say, well, what if we're convicting an innocent man? The sad thing is the justice system is so poor that we don't always take time to find a true murderer. Sometimes for expedience, we convict someone who is innocent, but this is not most cases. But if a man did not premeditate, if he did not lie in wait, but God caused it to come to hand, then I will appoint for you a place where you may flee. So if he did not premeditate it and God allowed it to happen, that someone would die, God would then appoint a city of refuge where he may go. And later on, this is going to be expounded upon. This would be a wonderful thing for us today. If a man comes presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile, you shall take him from my altar that he may die. Again, he is premeditating a murder of his neighbor. He who kills his father or mother shall be put to death. He who steals a man, which means kidnaps, and sells him, if he's found in his hand, he should be put to death. All these kidnappers today, there's no bargaining with them. Death. This is what the Torah says. He who curses his mother or his father shall be put to death. He's breaking the fifth commandment to honor them. I don't know if there are any cases where really that was done. I think there was a case that we read about, we'll read about later in the Torah. But these are true warnings to our people, because God told us, honor your parents. If we can't honor our parents, we certainly will have no reverence for God or any other authority. If men fight and one kills another with a stone or with his fist, but he does not die, but he has to stay in bed, when he gets up and he walks with his staff, then he who hurt him shall be acquitted. Only he has to pay for his loss of time and shall pay for whatever it takes to get him to be healed, which makes sense. This is something that isn't done in our justice system. Society ends up paying for it. If a man smites his bondsman or a bondswoman with a rod, and he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Now, what is a bondsman? Let me look. Sorry, I didn't take a look at this one because I was studying it from my other. Verse 20 says, a servant. If a man strikes his servant, male or female, with a rod, and the person dies under his hand, he shall be punished. Notwithstanding, if he continues a day or two, in other words, if the servant lives another day or two, the man should not be punished, because really he belongs to him. That's what it says here. The idea, in my understanding, there's the idea of a drug addict. When a person is a drug addict and they want to get off the drug, they are given, let's say, heroin. They are given another type of drug under supervision called methadone. Methadone is less addictive, and it can be slowly decreased while the person is going through therapy, while the person is getting help, until eventually he's freed from his addiction. Well, the picture here is that Israel was addicted to the gods of Egypt. Israel had lived in Egypt for those 70 years as slaves, but they had been over 200 years living under the Egyptian gods, and under the way that the Egyptians lived. So instead of God wrenching them away from all these ideas and addictions, like they weren't suddenly taken off heroin, they were slowly weaned away by God giving them other rules and regulations that would slowly have them direct their attention toward the Creator. So that's what these are doing. He's not taking things away from them, he is redirecting them. So if a man strives with another man, if men strive together and hurt a woman who is pregnant so that she loses the baby, but no harm follows for her, he will be fined according to the woman's husband. He will determine how much he shall pay as the judges determine. So they go before the court. Remember, they had set up a system with Moses and Jethro. Remember last week where Yitro set up the system where there would be some taking care of 10, some 100, some 1,000, and they would judge accordingly. But if any harm follows, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Now, this doesn't mean that if one person poked out the other person's eye, that he has the right to go and poke out his eye. What it means is that there are going to be consequences, and the judge, this committee of judges, the Mishpatim, the Shoftim, will decide just value, equal value. What is the cost of an eye? What is that going to mean for the person? Depends what he did for a living. This is what this means. Remember, the Torah is not about taking things literally. It's about understanding the principles. If a man hurts the eye of his servant, or male or female, and destroys it, then the servant is free to go because of his eye. If he takes out his servant's tooth, same thing. He lets him go free because of his tooth. Now, the next part here is showing us even God wants to show mercy even to animals. Jerry, you want to read this? 28. You're on mute. I can't hear you.
And if an ox gore a man or a woman, that they die, the ox shall be surely stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be quit. But if the ox was wont to gore in time past, and warning hath been given to its owner, and he hath not kept it in, but it hath killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death.
So you see here, what God is showing us is that our rights end where the rights of our neighbor begins. If you had an ox or any animal, let's say you own a pit bull, and you know that this pit bull is trained to kill, and then you know that this pit bull can, or any other dog, a German Shepherd, even a Chihuahua, doesn't matter. If you had an animal It says that was wont, that was bound to gore, and it's in the past that did that. And the owner had been warned, but he did not fence that ox in, and it killed a man or a woman. Not only was the ox stoned, but the owner had to be put to death too, because we have to be responsible for our neighbor.
If there be laid on him a ransom, then he shall give for the redemption of his life whatever is laid upon him, whether it have gored a son or have gored a daughter, according to this judgment shall it be done unto him. If the ox gore a bondman or a bondwoman, he shall give unto their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. And if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, and an ox or ass fall therein, the owner of the pit shall make it good. He shall give money unto the owner of them, and the dead beast shall be his. And if one man's ox hurts another's, so that it dieth, then they shall sell the live ox and divide the piece of it, and the dead also
The
they
price
shall
of
divide.
it. The price of it.
Or if it be known that the ox was wont to gore in times past, and its owner hath not kept it in, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead beast shall be his own. If a man steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall pay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep.
So you see, the most important thing is responsibility, and that a person make restitution. If you take something from somebody else, if you steal, you not only have to pay back 1 ox or 1 sheep, you pay 5 times and 4 times for a sheep. 5 for the ox because it's bigger, and it's taking away the livelihood, because they would use the ox to plow the field. These are just common sense regulations for us to learn. This is how we treat our neighbor. And it's the same now. If we steal something from our neighbor, we want something so badly, God forbid, that we steal it for them, and we're caught, we need to give it back. And not only single, it depends. If let's say we stole the car and he needed it for work, we'd have to give him back 5 times the amount of the cost of the car. It really deter people from doing these things that are wrong. And if a thief is found, go ahead.
Okay. If a thief be found breaking in and be smitten so that he dieth, there shall be no blood guiltless for him. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood guiltless for him. He shall make restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft be found in his hand alive, whether it be ox or ass or sheep, he shall pay double.
So again here, the thief needs to be accountable for what he's doing. Now here it says if he breaks in, and it's probably at night because he's probably killed, there shall be no blood guiltness for him. So it's like people have a right to defend their property. Today we've lost that right. If a thief comes in and we kill him, we're charged with murder. But here it says if the sun goes up and he's found guilty, he has to make restitution. If he doesn't have anything, then he himself is going to be sold as a slave because of his theft. And here, if the theft is found in his hand, if he still has it, if he stole an ox or a donkey or sheep, then he has to pay back double.
If a man cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, and shall let his beast loose, and it feeds in another man's field, of the best of his own field, and of the best of his own vineyard shall he make restitution. If fire breaks out and catch in thorns, so that the shocks of corn or the standing corn or the field are consumed, he that kindleth the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and be stolen out of the man's house, if the thief be found, he shall pay double. If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall come near unto God to see whether he had not put in his hand unto his neighbor's goods. For every manner of trespass, whether it be for ox, for ass, for sheep, for raiment, or for any manner of lost thing, whereof one saith, this is it, the cause of both parties shall come before God. He whom God shall condemn shall pay double unto his neighbor.
See, it's beautiful because they lived at a time when they could go. They had those who stood between them and God, and they could go and inquire not only of God, but basically for me, this means that these men who would be judging them were men of God, men who trusted God, men who heard from God, men who had justice, and they would make sure that these people paid for what they did.
If a man deliver unto his neighbor an ass or an ox or a sheep or any beast to keep, and it die, or be hurt or driven away, no man seeing it, the oath of the Lord shall be between them both, to see whether he have not put his hand unto his neighbor's goods, and the owner thereof shall accept it, and he shall not make restitution. But if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. If it be torn in pieces, let him bring it for witness. He shall not make good that which was torn. And if a man borrow aught of his neighbor, and it be hurt or die, the owner thereof not being with it, he shall surely make restitution. If the owner thereof be with it, he shall not make it good. If it be a hireling, he loseth his hire. And if a man entice a virgin that is not betrothed, and lie with her, he shall surely pay a dowry for her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. Thou shalt not suffer a sorceress to live. Whoever lies with a beast shall surely be put to death. He that sacrificeth unto the gods, save unto the Lord only, shall be utterly destroyed.
So you see here, it doesn't seem to have one doesn't seem to have correlation with others. Maybe if we read the Hebrew, maybe we can understand at a deeper level, but they're not chronological. They're just giving various understandings. Here, you shall not allow a sorceress or anyone who plays with witchcraft to live. I mean, today we don't kill witches or sorcerers, but in many ways they are they receive curses in their lives, which may end up killing them anyway, because it's, I played with some of this stuff in the New Age, and I know how dangerous it is, and it almost did take my life. And here it's talking about today, how many young women, young virgins, are enticed by men. There's absolutely nothing that are done to these men. We live in such an immoral society that virginity has absolutely no value. But here it's saying he has to pay a dowry for her. And if her father, who still has authority over her, refuses to let him marry her, then he needs to still pay the money according to the dowry of virgins in that day. Whoever lies with a beast shall surely be put to death. That's sodomy. And in any of these countries where this is still practiced, they need,
No, that's bestiality. Sodomy is homosexuality.
Okay.
Anyway, it's not a.
No, that's okay. That's good. He who sacrifices to the gods, except to the Lord only, shall be utterly destroyed. So God is not taking away at this point sacrifices, but he's saying you must not sacrifice to other gods, only to me, redirecting again so that we're looking to him. And a stranger you shall not wrong, nor oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So those who are with us, the Gerim, here says, Vager, we have to take care of the Ger. You shall not afflict any widow or orphan. If you afflict them in any way, and they cry out to me, I will hear their cry, and my anger shall be hot, and you will be killed with the sword. I will kill you with the sword, and your wives will be widows, and your children fatherless. And if you lend money to any of my people, even to the poor with you, you shall not be like a creditor where you charge him interest. We need to give interest-free loans. And if you would all take your neighbor's garment to pledge that you restore it to him by sun when the sun goes down. Let's say someone has gone bankrupt and they had to give everything away. They lost everything. But at night they need a cloak, for that is his only covering. It is his garment for his skin. Where is he going to sleep? And it shall come to pass when he cries to me that I will hear. For I am merciful. I am gracious. You shall not revile God, nor curse a ruler of your people. It's interesting how often do I want to curse the prime minister of this country. And then I read this and I said, no, I need to pray for this man because he does not know what he's doing. You shall not delay to offer of the fullness of your harvest and the outflow of your presses. The firstborn of your sons shall be given to me. And the same thing you shall do with your oxen and with your sheep. 7 days it shall be with its harness, but with its dam. What does that mean? For 7 days, when it's firstborn, it shall be with its mother. And on the 8th day, you give it to me. And you shall be wholly separated to me. Therefore, you shall not eat any flesh that is torn by beasts in the field. You shall cast it to the dogs. Let me just quickly see what this word dam is. 28. Not delay. On 29. Likewise shall you do to your oxen 7 days. It says also shall be with its dam. I don't know what that means. But you shall be holy to the Lord. But basically the idea here is whatever we bring to God, it always has to be the best, the fullness of the harvest, the firstborn of your sons, the best of the flock is always to be given to him. This is number 9, 9th commandment. Do not utter a false report. Don't put your hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. This is happening right now to a friend of mine, and it's absolutely a tragedy. You shall not follow a multitude to do evil. The kids in school need to learn this. When you see a bunch of guys doing something they're not supposed to do, don't do it. Do not bear witness in a cause to turn aside after a multiple of people to pervert justice. we have that expression, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice you must pursue. Neither shall you favor a poor man in his cause. So just because somebody is poor doesn't mean he should be favored, or likewise, if just because someone is rich, he shouldn't be favored. It has to always the truth with justice. If you meet, and now here, if you meet the ox or donkey of an enemy, your enemy, going astray, you shall bring it back to him. Imagine what your enemy will feel like or be like if you bring back one of his animals that had run away, or if you find something that your neighbor belongs to your neighbor and you give it back to them. This certainly will, it's like later on, it will say in the Tanakh, it's like pouring hot coals over their head, hot oil. Is that what it was, Miriam, hot coals? If you see his donkey,
Yeah.
what was it, coals or oil?
Sorry, hot oil, I think.
It's like pouring hot, yeah.
Is it? No, coals.
Coals. Yeah, it's like, it's really going to wake him up to take a look. Wow, look at this man is doing. And this is what Israel does all the time. Always helps their enemy. Always is the first, when here with Turkey, the first to want to go in, whether they accept them or not is their choice. Syria, they bring in children crossing the border from Syria into Israel for surgeries that they can't get into in their own countries, always helping their enemy. But if you see a donkey of those who hate you lying under its burden, do not pass by, but you shall set him free. You shall not rest the judgment of the poor in his cause. Don't hold back judgment just because someone can't afford to pay for a good lawyer. Keep yourself far from a false matter. Don't get involved with things that are crooked. The innocent and the righteous you shall not slay, no murder, for I will not justify the wicked. Take no gift, no bribe, because it blinds those that have sight and perverts the words of the righteous. Don't oppress the stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Don't take advantage of the stranger. Just because he isn't Jewish, don't take advantage. We need to treat people equally. 6 years you shall sow your land and gather it in, but the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, so that the poor of your people may eat. And what they leave, the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner you shall deal with your vineyard and your olive yard. So in the same way, now next it's going to talk about the Shabbat, but here it's really important, this Shabbat year of the land. Every 7th year we needed to leave the land fallow. And one of the main reasons is so that we could learn to trust him. Because if the poor and the beasts would come together with you and take from the land in the 7th year, it means you couldn't sow. So you had to sow in the 8th year, and then only in the 9th year could you reap. So you really had to trust God for those years in between to provide for you. It's all a matter of trust. 6 days shall you do your work. The 7th day you shall rest. That's your ox and your donkey. They also need a rest, and your servants and the stranger who is living with you, so that they may be refreshed. That's what the Shabbat is. It's a day of rest. And in all things that I have said to you, take heed. Make no mention of the name of other gods. Neither let it be heard out of your mouth. We had to turn away from other gods and turn toward our God. 3 times a year you shall keep a special feast to me. It's the feast of Pesach. You shall keep 7 days. You shall eat unleavened bread, and this shall be in the month of Aviv. for that's when you came out of Egypt. And no one shall appear before me empty-handed. Next, we have the festival of the harvest, the Shavuot, where you sow in the field, and the feast of the ingathering at the end of the year, which is Sukkot, when you gather your labors out of the field. So 3 times a year, all your males shall appear before the Lord God. Those are called the Shalosh Regalim. You shall not offer blood, the blood of my sacrifice, with leavened bread. Neither shall the fat of my feast remain all night until the morning. The choicest first fruit of your land you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God, and you shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. This has nothing to do with eating milk and meat, not eating milk and meat together. It had to do with compassion. God was showing us that it was a pagan practice. He was taking away from pagan practices. That's what these things were about, the paganism here. Don't utter anything, no false gods. And that had to do with that. It was a fertility rite to boil a calf in its mother's milk so that the woman could get pregnant. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you along the way, to bring you to the place I have prepared. Take heed, listen to his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. And if you shall indeed listen to his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. Right here in these 2 verses is the solution for anti-Semitism. Do you see that, ladies and gentlemen? Take heed, listen to God's voice, to the angel's voice. He's sending an angel, a messenger, and we're to listen to him. Moses was his messenger. Later it would be Yeshua, his messenger. The prophets were messengers. God's name is in each of them. And if we shall listen, hearken means more than listen, obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemy and an adversary to your adversaries. For my angel shall go before you and bring you into the land of the Amorites, the Hivites, the Perizzites. Here I believe it's talking about Joshua, because Joshua would be the one to bring them into that land. And I will cut them off, all our enemies. You shall not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do after their doings, but you shall utterly overthrow them and break into pieces their pillars. And you shall serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water. In other words, he will provide everything for you. You will not go hungry or thirsty. And look at what it says here. And I will take sickness away from among you. Last week, we saw the same idea. God is the one who removes our sickness from us when we serve him and do not bow down to idols. None shall miscarry. Our women will be fruitful, nor will they be barren in your land. And the number of your days I will fulfill. In other words, you will live a full life. I will send my terror before you and will discomfit all the people to whom you shall come. And I will make them, all your enemies, turn their backs upon you. I will send the hornet before you, which shall drive out the Hivites, the Canaanites, and the Hittites from before you. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, in case the land becomes desolate and the beasts of the field multiply against you. But little by little, I will drive them out from before you until you multiply and fully inherit the land. And it's going to be a large land. I will set your border from the Sea of Reeds all the way to the Sea of the Philistines, from the wilderness unto the great river. And I will deliver the inhabitants into your hand, and you shall drive them out from before you. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. And we have done that. We still are doing that. That's why we have people living right in the eastern part of Jerusalem today who are killing us because we have allowed them to stay in our land. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they sin again, lest they make you sin against me, for you will serve their gods, and they will be a snare to you. And Moses said, and to Moses, God said, come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, who are Aaron's first sons, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship from afar. And Moses alone shall come near to the Lord. They shall not come near, neither shall the people go up with him. And Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord, and all the Mishpatim, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord has spoken, we will do. Those words have been stuck in our throat for thousands of years because we have not done them. And Moses wrote, katav, yaktov. He wrote. This is not the oral Torah. This is the written Torah of the Lord. And he rose up early in the morning, and he built an altar under Mount Sinai, at the base of Mount Sinai, and 12 pillars, which still can be seen there today, according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent the young men of the children of Israel to offer burnt offerings and sacrifice peace offerings to the Lord. Yud, He, Vav, He. He didn't take them with the sacrifices away. He slowly was going to wean them away. We don't have sacrifices anymore because we have been weaned away from them. And Moses took half of the blood, put it in basins, half of the blood he dashed against the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the hearing of the people. And they said, again, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, behold, the blood of the covenant, which the Lord has made with you in agreement with all these words. I believe he's talking about the tablets of the commandments. Then Moses went up, Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and 70 elders, and they saw the God of Israel. And there was under his feet what looked like a paved work of sapphire stone, and the like of the very heavens for clarity. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel, he did not lay his hand. And they saw God, and they ate and they drank. I don't know what that means. They beheld him, because we know nobody could see God and live, but obviously he appeared in a way that they just knew that he was there with them. It was palpable. And the Lord said to Moses, come up to the mountain, to Mount, wait a minute, where am I? Come up to me onto the mount and be there. And I will give you the tablets of stone and the Torah, the commandments, the mitzvot, which I have written so that you may teach them. Moses was given them so that he may teach them. They're not the law of Moses. They're not Moses' Torah. They're God's Torah. And Moses rose up, and Joshua his minister, and Moses went up to the mount of God. And unto the elders he said, wait here a bit for us until we come back to you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a cause, let him come near unto them. Moses went up to the mountain, and the cloud covered the mount. And the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai. And the cloud covered it for 6 days. And the seventh day he called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. And if we look for a video that says the true Mount Sinai, you will see that the top of Mount Sinai is charred black. And Moses entered in the midst of the cloud and went up into the mount. And Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. You know, the whole idea that here where it says, I was trying to imagine what it felt like or what they saw. And I had an experience this week while I was driving to visit my old nanny in a senior's home. And I was sitting in the car and I was thinking about how I am part of his Am Segula, which means his treasured people. I am his treasure. You know, when we have something that we treasure, we treat it so well. And I was singing and praising him and just had such a sense of his presence. It was overwhelming. And I'm sure that's some of the things that these people were sensing as they ate and drank at the bottom of the mount. And then as they watched Moses go up and disappear into that cloud. This is our history. This is our heritage, and we can hold on to it when no matter what we're going through, because we can trust that he will bring us through. Now it seems that everybody has disappeared on me. Is that anybody still here? Anyway.
I'm still here.
Do you have anything to add to what you heard?
There was something about the sacrifices that remind me of when Jethro, remember the discussion about whether Yitro was still believing in the other gods or not?
Yes.
There was something similar here. I forget, I should have marked the verse about not, well, it's like not worshiping the other gods, because they did worship the other gods when they were in Egypt, and they learned, they were there so long that they were worshiping other gods. And they said, I am the only God. And it just reminded me of Jethro. Like I really feel anyway, that's my take on it, that he did worship the one God.
Exactly. And we have to look at it. How does it apply to us today? How many gods have we worshiped in our lives? You know, even
we tend to use the word God very flippantly. People just say, ask, do you believe in God? And some people say, yeah, of course. But what does that really mean? Do they really know what that means? Or is it just a part of our lingo that we hear everywhere? But it's really a relationship. It's a meaning. It's a whole new paradigm about why we're here and what life is all about.
But even to be more concrete about it, those of us who were involved in all the New Age things, all the occult, all the different religions. I remember even taking a course in transcendental meditation, and they gave me the name of a god. I didn't know at the time. They said they were going to give me a mantra. I was bringing an offering their yogi Maharesh yoga. Remember Maharish, whatever his name was, a yogi, and I brought money. I brought an offering of a fruit, and we we're living in a culture that is so easily worships gods. There's a god of money. There's a god of power. There's so many gods that we bow down to as if they have all the answers. But here we read that God would keep us healthy. God would provide all our needs. We've made the government into a god, bowing down so that they and voting for them so that they will meek out these little gifts that they give us every once in a while, thinking that we're receiving something so great. We give them everything and they give us back nothing. Religious leaders have become gods. We don't want to make a move unless we consult our rabbis or our pastors or our priests. People are afraid of so many things today because they no longer have the understanding that we can go directly to our God and that our God speaks to us directly or indirectly through something that we read, something that we see, even in our ear. It's a thought, an idea. There's so many ways that God speaks to us, but we don't want to trust. We prefer to rely on our gods. And because of that, we suffer the consequences. These Mishpatim, 53 of them, are all related to the 10 Commandments. They are not to be taken literally. As we read them, we need to apply the principles that they offer us, we have to glean these principles, dig around, look at them. What are they saying? And how are we being slaves today? To what are we slaves? Whom are we following? Who are we believing? Anyway, that's our portion for today. So thank you for joining us. And for those of you who are watching outside, we would love your comments, your ideas on some of these things we are discussing. Feel free to contact us. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that more people would listen, because if we don't get the Torah out there in this world, this Torah is what is going to save us. No human being can save us. We need to save ourselves under the auspices, under the covering of the wings of our God. And that is all there is.
Sorry, just one thing.
Yes.
I know we've said it before, but because it's so focused on sacrifices, this portion, I never knew till for many years, I never knew, but most of the sacrifices were literally eaten by them. That was their meals.
Yes.
But it was set apart, as you said before, to wean us. Eventually, we didn't need sacrifices, but because we came out of slavery in a country that worshipped other gods, and they even sacrificed their children or whatever.
And they did them in horrendous ways. The animals were not slaughtered with mercy.
And they weren't eaten, they were slaughtered as gods.
Well, some of them were eaten. They were eaten raw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they were used in fertility rites. They were used in different ways, and they were not. It was not a slaughtering of compassion, but God was showing us that we had to have compassion on the smallest of creatures. All His Mishpatim would be like that. It would show. We would learn that from Him.
But I never realized that most of the sacrifices were food.
Yes. Every time we came together, it was a gathering to come together, to eat. He's all about community, all about bringing us into harmony with each other in community. We can't learn to live the 10 Commandments when we're isolated. We can learn when we're together, when we it's iron against iron, when we drive each other nuts. That's when we learn, not when everything is too easy. And this whole society now is all about isolation. it's putting everybody into isolation so that people are now so homebound that they're afraid to go out, afraid of huge gatherings. Of course, many are not, but then they don't, that's another story. But the idea is really for us to live in community, to live in harmony with each other. And that's why these commandments were given and these mishpatim. And may we find out, what are we still slaves to in our lives? What from our past is holding us in servitude so that we can't live a free life where we can accept freely the gifts that God has given us so that we can enjoy this world, enjoy our lives, and be a testimony, be a witness for people that God is real. And that if we are obedient, we will be blessed. If we are disobedient, we will suffer the consequences. That is really the bottom line. So I wish you all a wonderful evening and a Shabbat Shalom, and God willing, we'll see you next week for Terumah. Good evening,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you, Miriam.
Bye.